All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving back into how to say no to your toddler.
Yes, we are.
We've made it to the conclusion,
We did it.
and we always try to pull out the most salient points from the entire book that we're deep diving into.
Absolutely.
And especially, I think this book, the conclusion, is really rich with some real helpful advice.
Yeah.
Um, I think we all get to the point with toddlers where, like, our usual bag of tricks isn't working.
Exactly.
And we're kind of left like, now what?
Right. And you're like, wait a minute, I read all these parenting books and I thought I had this. What's going on?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like the book calls it Plan C.
Yes.
Like when all else fails, we're going to Plan C.
That's right.
So I thought we could unpack a little bit of that Plan C.
Absolutely.
And one of the first things that the book really encourages is parents to do a little self-reflection.
Yes.
Um, and there were a couple things that really jumped out at me in that section. And I think this is something that, we all kind of know, but the book really sort of hammered home is the need for sleep
Oh, absolutely.
and how a tired toddler
Yeah.
is really just a recipe for disaster.
It is. And it's something that, I talk about all the time with parents of toddlers is how much sleep they need. I mean, we're talking like 12 to 14 hours a day for some toddlers, including naps. And so it seems like a lot. But their brains and bodies are developing so rapidly that they really need that time to recharge. And the book really dives into, why. It talks about how sleep deprivation affects the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for emotional regulation, for planning, for decision making.
Right.
So you can imagine a sleep-deprived toddler, that part of their brain is not functioning optimally.
Right. They don't have the resources to deal with,
Right.
the big emotions.
Exactly.
So really the meltdown might not be, them being defiant or pushing our buttons. It's just like their brain is tired.
Yeah. They're overwhelmed. They can't cope. And as adults, we know how we feel when we're sleep deprived.
Mhm.
We get cranky, we get irritable, we can't think straight.
Totally. Yeah.
So imagine that for a little person who doesn't have the language or the ability to understand what's going on in their body.
Right.
Yeah. So sleep is huge.
And so do you remember any like specific like tips that the book gave in terms of, getting toddlers to sleep better?
Absolutely. One of the simplest tips, and it sounds so basic, but they really emphasized moving bedtime 15 minutes earlier.
Okay.
And you might think, what's 15 minutes going to do? But they talked about how those extra 15 minutes can make a huge difference in terms of just letting the child's brain really wind down, get into that sleepy mode.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, the importance of routine.
Right.
Having a consistent bedtime routine. So that might include a warm bath, reading a book, no screens, dimming the lights, having that quiet time, to really signal to the child's body, okay, it's time to sleep.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of things that we can control,
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that the book also brought up the topic of parental stress.
Yes.
And I was reading this and thinking like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm bringing all my own stress to the table.
Absolutely. And I think, as parents, we often forget about that, right? We're so focused on our child's behavior and what they're doing. But children, especially toddlers, are like little sponges. They're picking up on our emotions, on our stress levels. And if we're feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, they're going to feel that too.
Yeah,
And that can actually contribute to their challenging behavior.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of going along with that, the idea of setting boundaries, and this is something I feel like I struggle with a lot, is am I giving too many chances?
Right.
And the book made a really good point, I thought, about that. Do you remember what they said about that?
Yeah, they really emphasized the importance of consistency and clear boundaries. So, instead of giving endless warnings, like, if you do that one more time,
Right.
which, let's face it, we all do, but really, giving a reasonable number of chances and then having a consequence. And they emphasize reasonable because, it's not like you give one warning and then that's it. But toddlers really thrive on consistency. They need to know what to expect.
Right.
And when we're inconsistent with our boundaries, it actually creates more anxiety for them because they don't know what's coming next.
That's so interesting. And kind of also in that realm of things that, we as parents need to be mindful of,
Yes.
was the whole, quality time versus quantity time.
Oh, yes.
And how it's not enough just to be with your toddler, but to be present.
Yes.
Oof, that one hit home.
That is a tough one. I think, in today's world, we're all so busy, we're all so distracted. Our phones are constantly, demanding our attention. But toddlers really need that focused, engaged time with us. And so the book really argues that even short bursts of quality time where you're truly present, you're putting your phone away, you're engaging with your child, can be so much more valuable than, hours of being together, but you're kind of half there.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that, it also encouraged parents to think about was, is this behavior, a sign of something deeper?
Right.
Is there something else going on?
Yeah, and they were very careful to say, don't jump to conclusions.
Right.
But if you've tried all the strategies in the book, you've really worked on consistency, you've worked on your own stress levels, you've looked at sleep, and you're still seeing really challenging behavior, it might be time to consider if there's something else going on. And so that might be developmental delays, it might be, issues within the family dynamic. There could be other things that are contributing to the child's behavior.
And I think, to that point,
Yeah.
he also said, if you're really struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for professional help.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's such an important message because, there's still so much stigma around seeking help for parenting challenges, but there are so many amazing professionals out there who can help. Your pediatrician is a great first step. They can rule out any medical concerns. They can refer you to specialists if needed.
Yeah.
There are child psychologists who can provide support and strategies. There are speech therapists, occupational therapists, depending on what the specific challenges are. So, you're not alone and there is help available.
And even amidst all of, the daily struggles and the chaos of toddlerhood, the book really emphasizes that
Yeah.
this is a phase.
It is.
And they have this really cute anecdote about a dad who finds his 2-year-old swinging from the clothesline.
Oh, wait.
Like, maximum stress in the moment.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like, how did you even get up there?
Right.
And then looking back on it, he realized, my kid was just like exploring and having fun and being a kid.
Yeah.
And it became this really cherished memory.
I love that. And I think that's such an important reminder for all of us, right? To try to find those moments of joy and connection, even amidst the chaos.
Right.
Because it is a phase and it will pass.
It will pass.
But it's also important to remember that, acknowledging that it's a phase doesn't mean we just let everything go.
Right.
Right. We still need to set those boundaries. We still need to say no, because that's how children learn self-control. They learn about limits. They learn about appropriate behavior. And so, the book really ties it back to those earlier points about choosing your battles wisely, offering positive reinforcement, creating that loving and supportive environment.
Right. And that consistency.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we've learned so much from this deep dive into how to say no to your toddler.
We have. It's a great book.
But I think it leads us to a bigger question. As our kids grow, how do those strategies evolve? Do we still need to say no as much when they're, 4 or 5?
Right.
How do we handle those, like, even bigger emotions as they get older?
Right.
I think that's something that, as your little one is entering their next stage of development, it's something to really think about.
Absolutely. And I think, the principles of the book still apply. We still need to set boundaries. We still need to provide that loving and supportive environment. But how we do that will definitely change as our children grow and develop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure, as always.
My pleasure, as always. It's been a great conversation.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.